Chosen one, light is only beautiful because of edges. A sunrise without a horizon is glare. A flame without a hearth is danger. Magnetism without boundaries is just appetite with good branding. God did not amplify you this month so you could glow indiscriminately. He crowned you with limits that make the glow useful. The radiance people feel around you is not merely voltage, it is form. The line between invitation and intrusion, the pause between admiration and access, the pace that guards wonder from being rushed into ruin. These are the frames that make your presence art rather than accident. A boundary is not a wall against love. It is a frame that helps love be recognizable. Frames do three holy things. They tell you what this is, they tell you what this isn't, and they keep fingerprints off the paint. You speak your frame in sentences that are short enough to remember when chemistry turns the room warm. I'm grateful, and I'm not available for that. I enjoy this, and I move at the speed of truth. I'm drawn, and I won't trespass my own covenant. When spoken with a steady temperature, these lines do not dim attraction. They make it safe to keep looking at the picture. Your high energy will always ask you to lower the frame for a better view. Energy loves speed and hates edges because edges slow and specify. You answer by giving your current an assignment it can be proud of. Build the plan that will keep kindness intact when you are tired. Finish the work that will bless people you will never meet. Hold the silence that gives someone else the courage to tell the whole truth. Practice a strength that does not need an audience to feel real. Each task honors the charge without letting it shop for shortcuts. Appetite untasked becomes a negotiator. Energy tasked becomes a builder. Boundaries are most luminous when they protect consent as a climate rather than a checkbox. In your climate, no is not an obstacle course. It is a compass. Yes is not a performance. It is a choice that arrives without coercion or countdown. You model this in micro movements. You wait for eyes before you shift the subject. You do not change proximity without reading comfort as carefully as you read poetry. You provide exits that do not make anybody a villain for taking them. You receive a no-like information rather than injury. This is what makes people trust their agency again. The radiance they call enchanting is often just the body realizing it will not be billed later for being human. The frame around your story is as sacred as any door. You share from places that can afford to be public and keep holy what would curdle under the lights, not because secrecy flatters you, but because intimacy disrespected becomes currency, and currency makes slaves out of everyone it pays. You let a few proven voices hold your unedited chapters, and you give the highlight reel back to the crowd without pretending it is the book. Women read this restraint as safety because their histories have taught them what happens when men confuse vulnerability with marketing. Your refusal to be consumed becomes the very thing people respect most. Boundaries are not merely verbal, they are architectural. You arrange your days so courage does not depend on adrenaline. You meet in spaces where futures can breathe. You end at hours that tell tomorrow it is valued. You let your devices sleep far enough away that attention can remember it belongs to you first. You make room for Sabbath before productivity has a chance to rename exhaustion as devotion. All this is radiance. The glow that follows such choices is not cosmetic, it is structural. It looks like a face that does not have to hide, a tone that does not have to plead, a body that does not have to bribe. Edges attract misreading. Boundaries look like arrogance to people who benefited from your permeability. They look like fear to those who have only seen bravado. They can even look like religion to folks who confuse freedom with the absence of form. Resist the urge to litigate your life. Keep living in such a way that even suspicion grows quiet in the presence of fruit. Fruit sounds like rest that arrives on time. It looks like humor that doesn't scar. It feels like endings that do not poison beginnings. Over a season, even critics will borrow your sentences for their own safety and forget where they learned them. That, too, is radiance. The brightest boundary you carry is how you leave. Exits tell the truth about whether your yes and no were for sale. You step away while warmth is still warm, before scarcity can make promises you wouldn't keep in daylight. You return admiration to admiration without upgrading it to obligation. You let messages go unanswered when you cannot be honest yet, and you pay the small price of patience to avoid the large bill of cleanup. You bless what was good without trying to make it bigger than its assignment. This is not aloofness, it is accuracy. Accuracy is mercy in long form. Boundaries also govern generosity. You give widely without becoming someone's only well. You mentor by returning power, not by renting dependence. You fund goodness that will outlive your name and refuse to take pictures with everything you bless. You know the difference between being a source and being a steward, and you choose stewardship every time. The glow that gathers around such a life is unmistakable. People feel taller around you because your help does not shrink them. They feel seen without being seized. They leave with more of themselves than they brought. And they call that miracle by the only word they have, magnetism, when what they have actually met is a man whose edges have learned how to shine. To keep boundaries radiant, you maintain them without ceremony. You sharpen the language when a hinge squeaks. You soften the tone when a gate has gotten stiff. You add a lock where immaturity keeps tripping over the threshold. You remove one where trust has proven itself over time. You make these adjustments like a gardener tends a trellis, quietly, regularly, for the sake of fruit you may not eat. At night, you ask simple questions that keep the frame true. Where did my no bless rather than punish? Where did my yes build rather than bargain? Where did I let admiration remain beautiful without becoming a bill? You receive the answers with gratitude and repentance in equal measure. Then you sleep. Sleep, too, is a boundary that glows. Chosen ones, edges are love's best friends. They let beauty keep its shape. They make power safe to touch. They allow desire to become creative instead of predatory. Wear your boundaries like light wears glass, visible enough to be trusted, clean enough to let what's holy pass through, strong enough to hold when weather comes. In that frame, your magnetism will not merely attract. It will heal. Chosen one, there is a sacred intelligence in the gaze that meets you this month. It is not merely interest peeking out from behind curiosity. It is a mirror searching for light to measure itself by. When a woman's eyes linger, understand that you are witnessing courage in motion. Her spirit briefly testing the weather of your presence to see whether beauty can breathe here. The world has taught many to split themselves into acceptable pieces to survive attention. Your task is to carry an atmosphere where no such splitting is necessary. The language of the eyes is older than speech, older than culture, older than any trick a man could learn. It asks one question and only one: am I safe to be whole in your field? If your answer is yes, it must arrive without announcement, carried in the way your shoulders unlearn conquest, in the way your mouth refuses to bargain with praise, in the way your laughter will not hire injury to be witty. This is why God raised your voltage and then handed you restraint. The voltage calls, the restraint keeps calling from becoming capture. There are many kinds of looks, and none of them deserve to be turned into trophies. There is the look of recognition, when something in your steadiness names a promise she once made to herself and thought she had lost. There is the look of relief, when the temperature of your tone suggests that her boundaries will not be charged an entry fee. There is the look of study, when curiosity, honest and unarmed, wants to understand the geometry that lets a man be warm without being a furnace. There is the look of ache, a prayer with open eyes, hoping your presence might repair what a lesser weather once ruined. And there is the look of play, light as wind on water, wondering if joy is allowed to be joy without paperwork. You cannot answer every look with the same sentence. You can answer them all with the same posture. Be a mirror that returns people to themselves without keeping a copy. Be a window that lets more sky into the room than legend. Be a door that opens with clarity and closes with blessing. When the feminine looks at you and feels drawn, remember that attraction is a teacher before it is a test. The lesson is about truth, not conquest. Her attention is not a coupon to be redeemed. It is a bell sounding, saying there's coherence here. Investigate. The investigation goes both ways. You also are reading, not to exploit but to understand. What rhythm does her soul keep when there is no stage to dance on? What happens to her voice when your silence refuses to rush it? What does she value when applause is not a currency in the room? Attraction accelerates the exchange, but covenant is what decides direction. You protect both parties from the common mistake of letting speed impersonate substance. You keep time human. You speak early, not to define what cannot yet be known, but to define what will not be violated while knowing grows. The honesty in your throat becomes part of the climate where both of you can discern rather than perform. Some gazes will try to place a crown on your head that is not yours to wear. They will call you answer when you are only an echo of a larger mercy. They will call you destiny when you are simply direction. Begin by refusing the flattery that edits reality. You are a chosen one, not the chosen universe. You are an instrument, not the concert. If your calm reminds her of God, point. If your strength feels like shelter, tell her what holds up your roof. If your restraint restores her trust in men, introduce her to the practices that keep your edges kind. Humility here is not self-erasure, it is accuracy. Accuracy keeps wonder from being weaponized. Accuracy stops the story from eating the people in it. There is also the gaze that carries history's tremor. You will see it and feel the urge to fix. Do not confuse compassion with conscription. You can be a witness without becoming a ward. You can be kind without borrowing tomorrow to pay for today. You can bless and still say, I am not your rescue, I am your respect. The difference is the saving of two futures. You model a path where love does not mean losing yourself, and help does not mean erasing the other's agency. Your presence becomes a small school where the feminine relearns what attention can be, not a debt, not a trap, not a sales pitch, not a countdown, but a shared room where both people leave with more truth than they brought. Your eyes are also speaking. Let them be a place where a woman's complexity does not have to apologize. Hold eye contact like a steady cup, never like a net. Look with blessing rather than inventory, with interest that does not imply entitlement. The feminine is exquisitely fluent in microtones because history made her so. She will hear even the ambition you think you hid behind eloquence. She will read the arithmetic you do with power mid-conversation. She will notice if your gaze solicits performance or shelters personhood. Choose the latter until it is no longer a choice, but your unstudied nature. This is how magnetism matures into ministry. When the attention you receive becomes a reason for someone else to trust themselves, not a reason to audition for you. There will be times when the look you meet is joy itself, uncomplicated and bright. Receive it without grabbing. Delight is a bird that lands in open hands. It will not tolerate a cage masquerading as a caress. Smile like a man at home in his own weather. Let the moment be exact size. If it is only meant to be a moment, bless it and keep it exactly that. If it asks for a next step, let step 2 be as honest as step 1. The eyes will tell you the truth if your ears are trained by prayer. This is why, under all the techniques the world sells, your advantage is devotion. Devotion gives discernment better than data can. In the end, the reflection of feminine eyes this month is not a mirror of your glory. It is a test of your governance. Can you be looked at without needing to be owned? Can you be admired without consenting to be consumed? Can you carry the tenderness of those glances to the altar at night and say, I did not spend these on my image, I invested them back into safety? When you can answer yes, something rare happens. The women who met you do not have to heal from you. They do not have to rename their hope because it was humiliated. They do not have to build new walls where your presence should have taught them to open windows. They walk away with their eyes brighter, not because you performed a miracle, but because you refused to turn their attention into a transaction. That refusal is the sermon you were asked to preach this month. Wordless, luminous, unforgettable. Chosen one, magnets draw, compasses direct. This is the chapter where God asks your magnet to remember its compass. The pull you carry is real and powerful, but without a true north it becomes a weather vane, spinning for whichever breeze is loudest. Your unshaken core is the set of promises you keep with yourself and with heaven when nobody is watching and when everybody is watching. It is the center that does not negotiate under applause or under accusation. It is the quiet sentence you return to when adrenaline argues that exceptions are wisdom. Without this center, a month of favor will spend you. With it, favor becomes a river you can channel into fields that grow food for years. Begin with origin. You are not your effect. You are not your inbox. You are not the rumor of your name in rooms you have not entered. You are a person who wakes to God before you wake to opinion. You light the candle before you open the calendar. You let the breath in your chest be more authoritative than the crowd in your pocket. The core you are guarding is not stoic indifference. It is the tenderness you are unwilling to trade for speed. Tenderness is not weakness. It is accuracy learned through reverence. From this origin flow 100 ordinary acts that look boring to those addicted to drama and look like oxygen to those who are ready to live. An unshaken core is constructed of simple covenants that do not change their price when the room warms. You will not let admiration buy access. You will not let neediness sell you heroism. You will not let beauty talk you into deadlines your soul cannot afford. You will not let urgency rename itself virtue. You will not let loneliness dress up as generosity. These sound like rules. They are actually freedoms you pay for up front so you do not have to bargain for them in the dark. When temptation arrives in its dozens of disguises, you do not debate each costume. You return to the covenants. A life that has decided is a life that can be gentle. The undecided must be loud to drown out their own negotiations. Your core will resist two corruptions: expansion without roots and roots without reach. Expansion without roots is the addiction to broader, brighter, bigger now. It makes you a tourist in your own calling. Roots without reach are the fear-led version of caution, the shrinking that calls itself wisdom because it is terrified to be seen. You were not made for either. You were made to expand at the rate of integrity and to root at the depth of obedience. That means growth that can survive a winter and visibility that can survive a scandal you never cause. The unshaken core is not ambitious against. It is devoted toward. It wants more harvest because harvest feeds people, not because headlines feed ego. There will be collisions this month, between your vow and someone else's velocity, between your pace and a culture's panic, between your boundaries and a story that expected you to be for sale. The core does not meet collision with contempt. It meets it with clarity. You do not need to perform a courtroom. You need only to remain whole. You say, I am moving at the speed of truth, and then you move at the speed of truth. You say, consent is our climate here, and then you refuse to breathe air that does not honor it. You say, endings will be clean, and then you leave while tenderness can still shake your hand. People will call this stubbornness until they realize it is mercy in long form. Mercy toward yourself, because you will not have to heal from your own choices. Mercy toward others, because you will not recruit them for a story that requires apology as a business model. The unshaken core learns the science of crisis. It knows that every spike in attention is followed by a valley where harvest either appears or hangover does. You do not build your house in the spike. You thank God for the view and you build on the ground. So you keep the disciplines nobody claps for: hydration, sleep, sweat, scripture, counsel, unglamorous excellence, restitution when you are wrong, gratitude before critique. You resist the seduction to replace these with things that photograph better. The camera is not your conscience. You let the parts of your life that matter most remain private enough to be real. Your core must also be hospitable. A fortress cannot teach, a hearth can. You welcome correction from proven voices and you let it land without turning the table into a debate. You invite younger men into your ordinary, not just your outcomes, so they can witness what a maintained center looks like when the inbox is loud and the room is warm. You show them your refusals as much as your results. You let them see you end early, apologize quickly, and laugh like a man who does not fear truth. They will borrow your sentences at first. One day they will borrow your center. That is how God multiplies steadiness across generations, through men who are willing to be seen, being governed. An unshaken core is not humorless. Joy is part of your structural integrity. You play in ways that do not ask tomorrow to fix today's joke. You celebrate without turning celebration into leverage. You enjoy beauty without trying to own it. You allow friendship to be full of life without making it a corridor towards something you cannot name yet. The soul that can play is the one that is not secretly negotiating for oxygen. When others sense you are already breathing, they relax. Relaxation is misread as hypnosis by those who have only breathed under threat. Let them misread while you keep the air clean. There will be nights when the center is tired. That is not failure, it is physics. You are not a machine. You are a man. On those nights, you practice the humility of small victories. You turn off the feed and turn on the kettle. You answer one message with care and let the rest wait for the morning you have promised yourself. You read one page of a book that keeps you human. You tell God where you almost traded your center for a compliment. You tell him where you stayed, not because it was easy, but because it was right. Sleep becomes an act of worship rather than an intermission between performances. Finally, the unshaken core carries a sentence into every room. I will not be less myself to be loved, and I will not ask you to be less yourself to be loved. That sentence is a tuning fork. It sets pitch for the whole space. Women who meet you feel its note in their bones. Some will come closer because freedom is sweet and they want to hear more of it in their own voice. Some will step back because control cannot breathe at this altitude. You do not chase either outcome. You keep singing the key. The world has enough noise. It needs pitch. When you live from the unshaken core, your magnetism stops being spectacle and becomes orientation. People leave oriented toward God, toward their own dignity, toward choices that will not require them to build a museum of excuses later. Walk, then, with a center that does not wobble when attention spikes or dips. Keep your north visible to your own eyes even when fog licks the ground. Return, return, return. 3 simple steps for every complex day. Return to devotion, return to the covenants, return to the pace of truth. If anyone asks the secret of your calm while the room keeps turning its head, give them the plainest answer you own. The middle is kept. The rest is weather. Chosen one, aura is not costume, it is consequence. It is the weather your life makes after prayer has done its carpentry and habit has laid its beams. Long before your words have cleared the doorway, your atmosphere has arrived, asking the room to choose between panic and proportion. This month, God has thickened that atmosphere. People feel it as soon as they turn toward you. The pressure drops from frenzy to human, and the air remembers how to be kind. The world will try to reduce this to image, to angles and formulas, but image is a mask and aura is a mantle. Masks exhaust, mantles enable. You are not carrying a brand, you are carrying a climate. Treat this climate like holy voltage. Your high sexual energy is the amplifier, not the song. It will increase the volume of whatever note your character strikes. If your interior is tuned to peace, the peace will travel farther. If your interior is tuned to entitlement, entitlement will too. That is why your first labor each morning is not to polish the surface, but to clarify the source. You return to the water that made you clean. You return to the sentences that keep you honest. You return to the giver, so the gift does not start narrating your day. Aura borrowed from God is weight without drag. Aura borrowed from ego is helium, loud, floating, unanchored, and soon out of air. There is hygiene to aura, and it is maddeningly ordinary. Sleep keeps your mercy available. Water keeps your patience from drying into sarcasm. Scripture removes the static that makes you mistake attention for assignment. Sweat escorts anxiety out the back door before it begins rearranging the furniture. Confession is your filter. It clears the sediments ambition leaves behind. Gratitude grounds the current so it doesn't jump into places it was never meant to power. None of this photographs well, and that is proof you are doing it right. The more invisible your maintenance, the more trustworthy your glow. Rooms will reorganize around your field. Schedules bend, tones change. Even cynicism lowers its weapons to see whether wonder might survive a minute without being taxed. Resist the thrill of becoming the center simply because you can. Gravity without humility becomes a sinkhole. The test is whether your presence returns people to themselves or recruits them into your orbit. Aura is stewardship when it multiplies other people's agency. It is sorcery when it reduces them to applause. Choose the former until it is instinct. You will know you are succeeding when silence around you stops feeling like suspense and starts feeling like relief. Beware aura inflation. Ego will try to print more of you into the economy than character can back. The symptom is subtle. You find yourself explaining what used to be self-evident, performing what used to be prayer, narrating what used to be neighborly. Your antidote is audit. Ask simple questions with surgical effect. Did my presence make consent cheaper and manipulation more expensive? Did my tone return oxygen or rent it? Did I spend glow on spectacle or invest it in structure? Structure is meetings that end before honesty bleeds. Structure is policies that require respect without needing you in the room. Structure is Sabbath on the calendar when harvest begs for 7 more rows. Structure makes aura safe when you are tired. Your atmosphere travels through pixels too. The feed is a crowded hallway where aura can be squandered in seconds. Keep your tone consistent across mediums. If you would not say it with the same warmth and precision in person, your thumbs are not ordained to type it. Do not spend midnight voltage on messages that daylight would revise. Late responses are cheaper than early regrets. Curate nothing except your conscience. Let your posts be an overflow of craft and care rather than bait for algorithms that will not stay to help you clean up. Consent is a climate online as much as it is in a room. No coaxing, no countdowns, no rhetoric that mistakes ambiguity for romance. You are building a house where futures can sleep, not a stage where hunger rehearses. Conflict will test the weight of your aura. The room's temperature rises, voices sharpen, and the old liturgies, sarcasm, interruption, escalation, tickle your hands. This is where your atmosphere earns its reputation. Lower the flame without lowering the truth. Trade generalities for specifics so dignity has handholds. Let pauses be long enough for adrenaline to lose its counsel. Refuse to be entertaining when what is needed is exact. People may call it restraint. It is craftsmanship. Gentle firmness is not a trick of tone. It is a sober allegiance to outcomes that keep tomorrow livable. Teach others to earn, not extract from this climate. Invite men near you to stop converting attention into discounts on virtue and start converting it into investment in excellence. Hand them verbs that travel: build, repair, return, begin, finish. Show them how to let admiration remain an encouragement rather than a promissory note. Show them how to bless beauty without trying to own it. Aura becomes culture when it is shared. Otherwise, it calcifies into personality cult. And personality cults always send a bill to the vulnerable. Hold loosely what tries to cling to you. Aura attracts attachment. Attachment is not always covenant. Some will attempt to rent your presence as a shortcut through their wilderness. Love them enough to point, to pray, to recommend, and then to release. Your refusal to be indispensable is part of why your atmosphere heals. Indispensable men become brittle. Assigned men become durable. Assignment is what lets you leave while affection is still intact, so that memory does not have to be edited to be cherished. At day's end, lay the mantle where you found it. Return the compliments before they become a crown that pinches. Confess the moments you turned radiance into leverage. Note the sentences that stabilized storms and the one sentence you wish you had unsaid. Thank God for closed doors that would have turned your glow into glare. Ask for heavier roots and a lighter step. Heavier roots keep the weight holy. A lighter step keeps the weight humane. You will sleep without an audience because you did not borrow your worth from one. If anyone insists on reducing the whole mystery to charisma, smile without superiority. You know the older word? Glory. A weight that steadies, a brightness that does not blind, a presence that makes repair affordable. Carry it as if lives cost something, because they do. And let the proof be simple enough for children to name. He was easy to stand near, I could breathe. Chosen ones, this is where the month turns from marvel to mandate. Sacred magnetism is not a party trick. It is a calling to become a place. Not a destination people move into and forget themselves, but a way station where travelers find their bearings and continue whole. God did not increase your pull so you could collect admirers like seashells. He increased it so you could turn attention into orientation. Seduction consumes, sanctification sends. You are being asked to become a sending place. Begin by telling the truth about what this magnet is for. It is not to prove you were right about your worth. That has already been settled in secret. It is not to gather stories you can stack into legend. Legends do not comfort the tired and do not tutor the young. Your magnet is an altar disguised as an atmosphere. People approach and remember what they already knew about goodness. They step away and discover that their spine remembered how to stand. Your job is to keep the altar clean. Clean altars do not sell smoke. They make room for fire without turning guests into fuel. Sacred magnetism is a trilogy in motion: threshold, table, and trail. At the threshold, you remove hurry like shoes. You make clear that no one will be asked to amputate their complexity to be welcomed. You acknowledge beauty without deputizing it. You set the pace at human and you keep it there. Then the table, conversation that feeds rather than performs, laughter that requires no collateral, honesty that arrives without being subpoenaed. Consent sits at the head of the table and is never asked to give a speech because its presence is built into the furniture. Finally, the trail, endings that bless. You return attention as ease. You give next steps that are light enough to carry without you. You leave the room before scarcity tries to negotiate a longer night. Threshold, table, trail. This is how magnetism becomes a liturgy people can live by. There will be invitations to turn this into a franchise of yourself. Decline with courtesy and conviction. Sacred magnetism grows by diffusion, not duplication. It multiplies in the men you mentor who choose clarity over theater at exactly the hour theater pays more.